Grandmama used to pray, oh Lord, please save them from the evil snares and all the dangers that entangle. Yea, though they walking through the valley of the shadows, just prepare and make them fit for every battle, because I know they bound to come, and I know they bound to fall, but in your bounty, Lord, preserve their beautiful. Right, we still surviving off of grandma's prayers, surrounded by the jungle and the lion's den. Tread light, cause these traps is inconspicuous. They hide right in plain sight, thinking we don't see them when they linger. Look right beneath the surface, then leave a trail of corpses. Crisis, prices, your life a disposable commodity, like living in a fantasy, conditioned to believe that the system even cares whether selling CDs or walking or driving or reading. Look, they don't even need a reason. It's just you breathing and being black. When it's such a pretty fall, it don't seem like we falling at all, at all. It's just a GMO dream, where things are never really what they seem. Please cue the violins, tell them just to play me something pretty, cause this gritty city got me screaming bloody murder. Said it got me screaming. This gritty city got me on some. Look, get your hand up on my pocket. Distraction, so lazy they use the same tactics, like condom with some trinkets. Just don't let them get to thinking. That light bulb gets a blinking. You know niggas and ideas. Oh dear, my dear, you may not know me, but I know you very well. Foresight, they say hindsight is 2020. Well, tell me something, we gotta see that history is on repeat, and maybe it takes a beat and a melody to speak a little louder than the message in the clouds or the essence in the air. I swear, my God is just so clear that a system driven by fear can never give us nothing but more of the same things. Oh, when it's such a pretty fall, it don't seem like we falling at all. It's just a GMO dream, where things are never really what they seem. Please cue the violins, tell them just to play me something pretty, cause this gritty city got me screaming. It's murder. Got me screaming, got me. This gritty city got me on some.
We ain't vote to get into this shit, so we won't vote to get out. We ain't vote to get into this shit, so we won't vote to get out. We ain't vote to get into this shit, so we won't vote to get out. We ain't vote to get into this shit, so we won't vote to get out.
We didn't vote to be colonized and enslaved. We didn't vote to be tamed. We didn't vote to suppress our rage and be trained. We didn't vote to be driven insane. We didn't vote to be disproportionately jailed. We didn't vote to be nailed to a cross daily and tragically killed. We didn't vote to be the guinea pigs for the birth control pill, or to be given syphilis by the soulless and deny medication while we lie ill. We didn't vote to be the first played, the last paid, and the last saved in the last days. We didn't vote to be stripped of our dignity and become afraid. We didn't vote to end fighting for liberty, for it is still necessary by any means. We didn't vote to temporarily camouflage our poverty in the stupidity of demonic dreams. And we didn't vote on the way reality is perceived, as so many of us seem to be seriously deceived. We only know what we're allowed to see, so sadly anything that's on TV is believed. We didn't vote to give the police the power to unleash a wrath that will slowly devour our people in a bloodbath, surrounding us with the reality of death until there's nothing left. Yeah, you do the math. We didn't vote to be this much miseducated. We didn't vote to be kidnapped, separated and traded, segregated to be integrated. We didn't vote to have our sisters sexually violated. We didn't vote to have our brothers special educationally castrated, to have them both to be later incarcerated, incinerated, left totally devastated, almost dead and forever looked upon by society as the most hated. We didn't vote for the demonic blockade on Cuba. We didn't vote for the forced trumped up charges on Asada. Got these crackers so mad only 90 miles from America, and they still can't fucking touch her. So you tell me who's freer, now that's black power. We didn't vote for the assassination of Malcolm and Chad, the torture of Abisu. We didn't vote for the unlawful incarceration of Mumia. We didn't vote to sign his death warrant, so we can't just vote to stop them either. Wasn't it Malcolm who stated the ballad or the bullet? This last part about the bullet we must have forgot, because if Malcolm was alive, he wouldn't have hesitated this long to pull it. And most of these reactionary sidestepping motherfuckers would've gotten shot. Why? Cause we ain't vote to get into this shit, so we won't vote to get out. We ain't vote to get into this shit, so we won't vote to get out. We ain't vote to get into this shit, so we won't vote to get out. We ain't vote to get into this shit, so we won't vote to get out.
We are live and direct. What's going on? We got Margaret Kimberly in the building. What's going on, Margaret? How are you doing today?
Oh, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Hey, it's always an honor, privilege, and a pleasure. Forgive me my technical difficulties going on today. My tech skills are not in order, but I think I'll be all right regardless.
That looks
Yeah,
good.
yeah. Okay. We'll let you. We'll ride with what you're talking about. Man. First of all, again, I know you're very busy and you're doing great work over at Black Agenda Report, and we want to commend you for those long-term efforts. For folks who are not familiar with Margaret Kimberly, she is the executive editor and senior columnist of Black Agenda Report and the current host of Black Agenda Radio. Her book, Prejudential Black American the Presidents, was published in 2020 by Steerford Press. If you don't mind, Margaret, give us a little bit about the book itself, because for folks who aren't familiar and might mess the title up like myself.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Kalonji. My book is Prejudential, Black America and the Presidents. And prejudential is a made-up word by myself and the publishers. It is a history of the presidency going from George Washington to Donald Trump, explaining the history of Black people. I initially started out wanting to write about each president and their relationships with and treatment of Black people, but I think it's actually Black history from from the 1700s till the 21st century, and we just see this cast of characters, usually considered very this pantheon of, the word is used, of respectable people, but of course they're anything but, especially as it concerns Black people. The early presidents were 12 of the 14 of the 14 first presidents. 12 of them were slaveholders. Even after the end of chattel slavery, after the Civil War, we see a pattern of Black people looking to the political system for salvation. So after the Civil War, it's the effort to continue Reconstruction. It's the nadir, when Jim Crow segregation was in full force for almost 100 years. Then we see a repeat again. First, the Democratic Party was the party of the segregated South. Then it became the quote unquote Black People's Party, as the late Glenn Ford used to say. So we're back in the situation we were in more than 100 years ago, in expecting this electoral system to provide us with some liberation. Although there is another thread, and that is when there are any improvements, when there is anything that can be called liberation, it's because of the actions of the people. So the book is Prejudential, published by Steerforth Press. You can get it from Steerforth Press website. You can get it from Amazon. I don't like to say that word, but you can get it from them. There's an audio book. You can get it from Barnes and Noble. You can order it if independent bookstores are great, and they will order it for you.
So it's prejudicial.
Yes.
Okay. I'm glad. I was like, that's a word I haven't ran across yet. So I was like feeling kind of bad, but I'm glad you said it was homemade. It's homemade brew, so it's all good. You mentioned, so you went from George Washington to Trump, and I'm definitely happy you mentioned first 14 or so presidents being slave owners.
Hmm.
It's funny because I was at a event recently, and someone quoted Martha Washington, and I was like, man, Martha Washington was like literally giving away enslaved Africans as gifts, as wedding gifts and birthday gifts, so on and so forth. And this is, supposed to be a progressive Black organization that
Oh
had
my
this event.
goodness. She
Yeah.
actually owned more people than George. She
Hmm.
inherited, I hate to think of human beings as being inherited, but that was the case, more than 200 people from her first husband, whose name was Custis. His last name was Custis. And she married George Washington. He owned a mere 50 or so people. Um, he these people were held by her, uh, well, actually by her late husband's estate. And that's important to remember because George Washington would claim that he was going to free certain people, but when he couldn't, they did not belong to him. And some of them were to be freed when she died. In the last years of her life, she lived in fear that one of those people would poison her. And we can't be sad about that, can we? Um, he was. I wanted. I want to talk about. You've gotten me started here about why Washington D.C. is the capital of the United States. The first capital was New York City. Then it was Philadelphia. Then it was Washington, D.C. It kept moving further and further south. Now, they built a new city. Why would you need to build a new city? There were already cities. The original 13 colonies were all on the East Coast. There were major cities from New England down to Georgia. Why would you need to build a new city? Well, you would need to build a new city if you were afraid that there could be some action to end or in any way circumscribe slavery. So you build a city between Virginia and Maryland. Now, there was slavery throughout the North as well, but it was a more powerful political institution in the South. So you would want a city that was closer to the South. Washington had a problem because when Philadelphia was the capital, Pennsylvania had a law. If an enslaved person was in the state for more than, I think it was 6 months, they could be freed. So what did he do? He rotated. He didn't let anybody stay for that 6 month period of time. And that raised the issue of slavery itself, how they wanted to protect it. And that meant it had to go further south. And that's something they don't teach you in school, but that is why they created an entirely new city.
Wow, that's a real serious thing. It's funny just hearing this story. Just reminds me of how all the laws that they created they broke before and after they were created. You know what I mean? I'm just like
Well,
these.
what he did in rotating people, that was illegal because Pennsylvania knew there was this loophole and people would do that. And they said, by the way, you can't do that. So what did the President of the United States do? He violated that law.
We're surprised to see a president violate the law. What? I can't even believe you would say that on Black Power Media, Margaret. That's just it's unlike you. Um, we speaking of, I mean, you started off talking about the electoral process as a whole and
Mhm.
how our people in particular they're under this. I feel like the electoral politics is a delusional state,
Yeah.
especially when we talk about on a national level. And I was talking to some friends the other day, and one of the things, because they were arguing about who was going to be president and all this type stuff, and of course the usual talk: if this one is the president, then this is going to happen. If you don't vote for Biden, you ain't black, and if you don't get Hillary's hot sauce, then you're really not down. So I was looking at it, and they asked me my thoughts, and I told them it's like having an uncle that's mentally ill, and it's
Mhm.
like he's saying he sees these leprechauns over here. You're trying to get him some help, so you're like, okay, the leprechaun said it's cool, they're not gonna hurt you. Just get in the car, everything's gonna be all right, so on and so forth. That's how electoral politics is. It's like you already know that regardless of who's sitting in that particular seat,
Mhm.
that nothing good is going to come out of it for African and colonized people. So I wanted your take. Yeah, okay. I wanted your take because
It's
you
uh
know,
it's particularly I touched on this a little in talking about my book. There's always historically been a Black People's Party and a White People's Party. And for the past 60 years, Democrats have been the Black People's Party and Republicans the White People's Party. And Black people are trapped by, or feel trapped. I shouldn't say that we are, feel trapped by the duopoly because we know the Republicans are the white people's party. And nothing showed that more than Trump, Trump seemed to be this existential nightmare, the openly racist Republican who ended up winning the presidency because of his racism. In retrospect, I think when he said he was going to build a wall and make Mexico pay for it, I think that's may have been the day he won the election. But at any rate, um, so Black people feel like the only thing we can do politically is keep those forces at bay. So partly it's cynicism. Well, I wouldn't call it cynicism. It's knowledge. It's people knowing that the system really isn't going to do that much for us. And we may be thrown a bone every now and again, but it isn't really. But there's this other party who are out to get us. And we must keep that other party out. Even as, Black people in our honest moments will talk about Democrats, people will say, take us for granted, or even do things that we know are harmful to us. But we feel like we don't have a choice. And because the liberation movement was crushed, we think the only thing we can do is vote. We don't think we can revive that movement, that we can have another one, that we can learn from what happened decades ago, and that we have no choice but to vote, and all we can do is vote. And that means you have to want Joe Biden to be the president, the man who bragged about, I wrote the crime bill that put so many Black people in prison. That he has to be your choice because you don't want Trump. So, and that's, of course, I often say that if Trump didn't exist, they would have to invent him, because any question even if you ask a question, it's but Trump. Do you want Trump? You don't even mention Trump. You'll say, what about this or that policy? And the answer is, but Trump. Well, what happened to the child tax credit? Why is there a Medicaid unwinding? They're kicking millions of people off Medicaid across the country, which is why Biden's in trouble. And it's generally not framed that way. People say he's too old, which he is, and he's in cognitive decline. He is. But if there was still a child tax credit, if people weren't being kicked off Medicaid, they'd vote for him anyway, and he would not have any challenges in becoming president. But that raises another issue about politics in this country, and that's the fact that the ruling class there are different wings of the ruling class, but they tell the Democrats and Republicans what to do, and they have made it clear to them those programs during COVID are over, they're not coming back, and you better not even think about mentioning them. So the people who you think are going to save you have made it clear that they have another boss. They don't represent you. You're not their real constituent. The ruling class are their constituents. But there remains this fear. It goes back to the days of Jim Crow segregation, that those people have to be kept out. And that's all we can think about, is keeping them out and not think about anything else.
that's a real serious mindset. That state of mind is like so backwards. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, like you said, I mean, there's really no research. There's really no thinking. Folks think they're thinking, and you say, okay, well, if you don't vote Democrat, it's going to be this, or so on and so forth. And then you hear some folks say, well, Biden's new, just give him a chance. But Biden has over 50 years of politics in his belt, in his trick bag. I want to talk about, because you wrote a very interesting article. But before I go there, I want to go, I want to take it back to Senator Joe Biden. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? You know, he's been around for a while.
Hmm.
You know, You mentioned the crime bill that he was so happy about, him and the Clintons, the other black president, um, before Obama. Want to know, why do people have this cognitive dissonance? Why is there such short term memory when it comes to this career criminal, this career war criminal?
Well, I think we're told our choices are limited. And when they crushed the liberation movement, people don't think this for no reason. So the movement's gone. Um, and that's the back of everybody's mind, that there be another COINTELPRO, more political prisoners, a worse mass incarceration system. So some people don't talk about it, but I think subconsciously people know there are dangers in being political, being a revolutionary in one's politics. So that's first of all. The propaganda for the past, I'd say, 50 or so years has been very intense. The co-optation, they let some of the steam off. They let some black people in, so more black people went to college or had more opportunities. So you had a group of us who did a little better, although that's changing. And so it's a combination of all of those things that led people to not to see themselves as political actors on their own. And the other propaganda was, this is all you have. Vote, 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 vote. That's all you have. There's nothing else you can do except vote. If the Democrat loses, it's your fault. This whole thing about fault, it started with I guess when Al Gore lost, and then it was amplified when Hillary Clinton lost, that it was the fault of people who didn't like her or wouldn't vote for her. And we ended up with Trump because people didn't just suck it up and vote for her, even though they knew she was awful for any number of reasons. So all of this has combined to create a mindset of fear. I would say that. I think that's the arching thing, is fear. Black people are afraid, and more than anything else, and that fear rules us, and actually limits us very, very much. So if Trump could come back, Trump could come back. Okay, so if he does, what are you going to do? And what happened to your life when he was president? And how was that different from when Obama was president? And Bill Clinton, who you all voted for, he put thousands more black people in jail, and Joe Biden helped him. So how is he any better? But the cognitive dissonance that you refer to kicks in. And so people think it's like being told the world is flat and you'll fall off the edge. There's no other possibility. There's no other existence for you except this corrupt duopoly, which doesn't even represent you. This is it. That's it. That's all. And if you present anything else, it presents a problem for people who either haven't in a long time, who have never thought that there's any other possibility to improve their lives.
I appreciate that. Definitely, when we talk about, I definitely the fear factor. I unite with that, and also I think it's the trinkets as well. You look at Joe, and he lined his cabinet up with a majority of black women. So he's like, I'm going to put all of these black women in office, and you're not going to be able to touch me because it's black girl magic, and you have we have our people further confused because now I can't criticize certain, I can't criticize black women. I got to look at, I almost forgot the honorable vice president's name, but I have to look at her like she's a black queen or something now because of the fact that she's in office, and and things are getting better. I wanted to know your thoughts on that. Do you think it's by design that he was busting his sneak move and further pitting black folks against each other and
Oh, sure he
bring
is.
the argument home.
His on Twitter, someone in this campaign said, if it weren't for black people, I wouldn't be the president, meaning you're supposed to keep voting for him.
Right.
What black people should take from that is that we have demands. And since you can't be president without us, we've got some demands and we've got some red lines. Instead, it turns into this foolishness. The black girl magic and Kamala Harris, who, of course, you can't remember her name. She's a non-entity. She's not. I mean, have you ever? It's amazing to me. Have you ever seen her try to talk off the cuff? I mean, it's something most politicians do very well, do very easily. But the nervous laughter and the inappropriate remarks and the blurting things out, and sometimes she appears to be under the influence. To me, she's not very smart. So she's entirely forgettable. Maybe my next book will be about how, choosing running mates and how problematic that is. I call her Dan Quayle in a dress. You remember Dan Quayle, the first Bush vice
Absolutely.
president, who was a mediocre non-entity? Well, that's Kamala Harris.
Yeah, she's definitely the top two. Yeah,
and these other black people in his cabinets, none of them have very high positions. I suppose the Defense Secretary, Lloyd Austin, is I think the highest ranking black person in his cabinet, but he's fully on board with the imperialist project. He wouldn't be the defense secretary if he wasn't.
of course.
But the black girl magic but it permeates. It permeates not out down from the Biden administration. So when we hear that Marilyn Mosby, who was the district attorney in Baltimore, she's being I don't know, has she been convicted? She's been charged with a crime, and we're all supposed to be on her side. But I tell people, if you know who Keith Davis Jr. is, you're not supposed to care about her. A black man who was shot by the police in order to cover up for shooting him. They charged him with a murder he had not committed. He was in jail for years. Marilyn Mosby charged him, I believe, 5 different times until a new DA came in and dropped the case. So I can't be for Marilyn Mosby. To hell with her. And I don't want to use the word hell either. Or Fonnie Willis in Atlanta. You've got to back Fonnie Willis because blah, blah, blah. And, she made some stupid decisions, mixing business with pleasure, combining her professional and personal lives, and hired this man she shouldn't have hired. And there was a legitimate question. But
right.
Who is she? What did she do? She put black teachers in jail over some alleged test cheating scandal that was turned into a scandal. And I know you're in Atlanta, so the black leadership in Atlanta, they do what white people tell them to do. So We're not supposed to care about her either. But that pull is very strong from the days of Jim Crow and the idea of representation, and that having black people in big jobs is supposed to be a victory for everyone. And I feel like I rambled and didn't answer.
No. You're hitting all the right spots, because I'm listening to you. You're saying all the things that I want to say, and I'm ostracized. I'm looked at like, and it's like Dr. King said, our people had an 8-day memory. Right now, I feel like it's 8 minutes. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, soon as you get off of social media, you forget certain things, unless we're talking about, some bull. You know what I mean? I'm trying to be respectful and not curse in front of Margaret Kimberly also. For folks who are confused today, this is what's going on. Margaret got me up against the wall. But anyway, no, but you talk about like Fonnie Willis and Marilyn Mosby, and it's like, it's blasphemy. It's like, you can't. I'm confused. Like, why are people so forgetful? And as long as the black woman can stand up and face white criticism, you know what I mean? Stand up in front of her masters and her cohorts, then it's okay. Why is that? I'm
It's the same thing that leads to celebrity worship. or
Right.
celebrity obsession. So, there's a scandal involving P. Diddy or something. So everybody talks on and on and on about. There's not that much to say. There never was.
Right.
But he made good. He was supposed to be a millionaire. And he sold some bad vodka. I'm told it was horrible anyway. But anyway, he was supposed to be this entrepreneur and this impresario and a successful black person, made a lot of money. Aren't we proud? Aren't we happy? And there are other people too who get all this attention they should not get. And it's this concern for the two women I mentioned, Fonnie Willis and Marilyn Mosby, or black politicians, or any prominent black person, is supposed to outweigh anything else and everything else. But I think that comes from a lack of information, a lack of political education, that people's thinking comes down to that level of a black person having done quote unquote well. Becoming a prosecutor is never doing well in my book. That's they're the biggest
Right.
criminals in the country, but and it's so strong. That pull is still so strong, but our people just need political education. I think that's the simplest way to break that. It's like a spell. It's like
Right.
people are still under this spell after all these years.
That reminds me of Kwame Ture when he talks about capitalism will confuse you. And he talks about how capitalism lies all the time, and even when it tells the truth, is a result of a double lie. I think that part of this whole thing is, we're looking to the quote unquote looking at the state, and we're trying to measure our success based on capitalist terms. It's like, okay, this is, it's okay because they're successful. They made it on top of master's roof. So now all of a sudden they're trying to push him off that roof. So forget that they stepped on a number of heads to get to that roof. The fact is, we can't let them kick them off the roof. And they're going to turn around and do the same thing to us again once they get their weight back up. But for now, it's sort of like OJ.
Oh,
It's like,
well, he's an excellent example of a black man who never did anything, not even like the
right,
mild things like the NAACP or the college fund or any, like
nothing.
respectable things. He wasn't interested in black people, but there he
Right,
was with his dumb self and trouble he created for himself. I don't want to give
right.
that too much now that he's departed, but it took over people's thinking for years. I'm just glad the internet was in its infancy when he was on trial. I think that's the only saving grace.
I don't think we would have made it this far if not.
But and it's because, and there is racism. So white people wanted him to be convicted because they were racist. And that's true. There are white people who wanted Obama to fail because they were racist. They didn't care about all the evil deeds that other presidents had done. But that's
Not at
supposed to
all.
be, that's supposed to be what white people are allowed to do. You can't have a black person doing the same evil that
Yeah.
white people had done. But I'm going to go back to this political education that is
Yes.
so desperately needed. So this is another fear, that we lose that fear of white people, which can lead us to defending real terrible people and terrible things. So I think, but I think it's important to step forward. It's not easy. I remember when Obama first ran in 2008, and we took so much heat at Black Agenda Report because all we did was tell the truth about Obama. But there were other people who were supposed to be on the left. They all folded. Well, give him a chance. Well, this one's racist against him, and so, black people lost their homes because of a black president instead of a white president. And that was
Right.
supposed to be a big victory.
Mhm.
But capitalism does confuse us, because the success that you referred to, well, what is success? What is it? Is it having a big job? Maybe. Is it making a lot of money? Is it, but what is it to be the Secretary of State, to be Colin Powell, and to sell your soul for the likes of George W. Bush and tell lies to kill 1 million people in Iraq? That's success? Is it? Is it really? So to be able to step back and ask ourselves questions, well, is that success? Is that something to be defended? But that's, I think, what we need. That's why, and I'll plug blackagendareport.com. That's why what we do is so important, because we will take the hits. We took the hits for 8 years of Obama. We take the hits, we still do, because we stand up for the people. We stand up, we say news and analysis from a Black left perspective, Black and left. And so we're going to take hits for both of those reasons, but that's okay. That's why we need independent Black media. That's on the left, radical Black media. It is so necessary, and I think we do, and you do, and the other folks at Black Power Media. We all play a part in providing this really urgent need for education. And I'll just speak of myself personally. I was allegedly educated. I went to college and got a degree in a good school and blah, 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 but I didn't know anything. The things I've told you about these presidents, nobody taught me that. I mean, that's the literal not knowing. It's the Eurocentrism. It's the disappearance of Black people. Everything I have in my book, Prejudential, it's all there in the library. All you have to do is start researching, and you see Abraham Lincoln wanted to send Black people out of the country.
Right.
Till the end of his life, till like a couple weeks before he was assassinated, his goal was to get Black people out of the country. There was briefly a colony in Haiti. That was supposed to be an experiment to see if Black people could be sent somewhere else. It's not hard to find, but it was deliberately kept from us. And that's the miseducation process that actually, the more formal education you have, the more susceptible you are to that. So, but that's what we need to know not just our history, to know the history of the world, to know that it was the Red Army that defeated Hitler. Right. It was the Soviet Union that defeated Germany. They took most of the casualties. They took most of the hits. That's who won the war in Europe. And D-Day anniversary is coming up, and they're not going to invite Russia. But if you read blackagendareport.com, you'll know that Russia should be.
That's why we got you on here. Anyway, no, we definitely appreciate the work that you all have done at Black Agenda Report, and shout out long live the spirit of Glenn Ford, Bruce Dixon, who was my neighbor for a while. You can imagine Bruce as a neighbor. I ain't got to tell you no more than that. But anyway, so
he was a Renaissance man. He was a farmer. He was growing melons. I was like, he really is a farmer, but fixing his car, but writing for Black Agenda Report. He was, they were both, I miss both of them very much. They were both my mentors intellectually. Glenn Ford is the person who taught me how to write. And it was a big loss when both of them passed. But that's the other thing I want to say. Our job as revolutionaries is to mentor other people, so that when we leave, and that's inevitable, that there are other people who can pick up the ball and run with it. So that should be everyone's goal, to mentor others, so this knowledge isn't lost, the history isn't lost, the politics aren't lost, and it's never too late. I was in my 40s when I started writing. I'm about to turn 65. And I always say that too. We're told that, and capitalism does that, you have to do certain things at a certain age, and by this age you should do this, and by this age you should do that. No, that's not true. So you can learn something new when you're in your middle age, and I'm an example of that.
Hey, we definitely appreciate that. You said you was in your middle age in 40s. I'm still trying to deny. I'm 53, And I'm like, nah, I'm still young. I'm in my youth. But anyway, thanks for crushing my dreams, Margaret.
You were youngish. That's what one of
Yeah,
my friends says. She says she's youngish, so you can
youngish. I can
qualify.
get away with it.
You can.
Okay, cool. Glad we got that taken care of. Your article, you wrote an article recently.
Mhm.
It's called Biden Sliding Toward World War III. And you start the article off saying the idea of world war should not be relegated to science fiction. Western escalations in Ukraine could lead to conflict with a nuclear power. You quoted Vladimir Putin by saying constant escalation can lead to serious consequences. If these serious consequences occur in Europe, how will the United States behave? Bearing in mind our parity in the field of strategic weapons. It's hard to say, do they want a global conflict? And then this line, which is very important, Joe Biden is a very dangerous man indeed. In his many years of public service, first in the United States Senate, then as vice president, and now president, he was never thought of being very smart.
That's true. He's has been a career of mediocrity. Obama chose him because he's a right winger. Obama had this, he'd been marketed as this progressive, which of course he was not. So he had to pick a running mate who had always been on the conservative side of the Democratic Party. And yes, he'd been on the Judiciary Committee, when Democrats were in the majority. He's the one who, by the way, Clarence Thomas, everybody talking about Clarence Thomas, I can't believe it. Well, Joe Biden's the one who got you Clarence Thomas, cutting deals with the Republicans to make sure he was on the Supreme Court. I already mentioned the crime bill. He bragged. He said, we do everything but have the death penalty for jaywalking in this bill. He even said, I wrote the damn bill, So,
right about it.
Yeah, but nobody ever said, and he's been around forever, 50 years, as you pointed out. But nobody ever says, oh, he's a smart guy. He's really bright. No one ever, ever, ever mentions Biden's intellect. He's a dinosaur. He's a cold warrior. He really believed that he could destroy Russia's economy, turn the ruble to rubble, as he said, by sanctioning Russia. He really thought he could get away with blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline that goes from Russia to Germany. He did get away with it because the corporate media covered it up. Congress hasn't said anything, so maybe he wasn't wrong about that. So he has created this proxy war in Ukraine. I was referring to Ukraine. 2 years later, they've achieved nothing that they thought they were going to achieve, except for cutting Europe off from Russia, and the stupid Europeans, little, vassals, have gone along like vassals always do. But they haven't achieved their goals. There's no regime change in Russia. Putin's still in charge. They couldn't sanction Russians' oil. They didn't destroy their economy. The only thing they succeeded in doing was killing a lot of Ukrainians. But now they want to escalate. They want to allow Ukraine to strike inside Russia. This is a recipe for a hot war with Russia, period. And the Russians keep saying so. And that's why I quoted Putin. This is a very, very dangerous situation. It is never mentioned by the corporate media. Unless you read Black Agenda Report, unless you read other independent outlets, you have no idea this is going on. People are fixated on Trump, who paid off a porn star, and because he's stupid too, and he won't go. They're mad because he won't go away. The goal was to try to keep him from being president again. So we're supposed to focus on Trump and the 34 counts that he's guilty, 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 and all these internet memes, some of which are funny. Trump is a danger. Trump is so terrible. Meanwhile, Joe Biden is leading us to a hot war with another nuclear power. And it's something that needs to be discussed. And that's why I chose to write about that.
So you have the Ukraine and Russia. You have the U.S.'s involvement. You have, of course, Israel, Palestinian situation going on. You would think that Biden would try to be a little smarter. Or you would think that he would have some folks around him that were smarter. What What's going on here? I mean, I'm
Well,
really
the
feeling
people
like
around him are of the same mindset, and there are all these people who are on a revolving door. Antony Blinken, the Secretary of State, and what's her name, who they got rid of, but who's still hanging around, Victoria Newland, and Jake Sullivan. They all worked for Obama too. They go, it's a revolving door. They're revolving door Democrats and revolving door Republicans. Some people show up no matter who's in the White House, but they are of the same mindset that the U.S. should dominate the world. And that can't happen. It cannot happen. And even in the efforts to do that, they will create chaos for the entire world and ultimately for the United States as well. So they think they can dominate Russia and they can dominate China. They cannot. So it's futile, number one, and it's very, very dangerous, number two. But it's white supremacy, it's imperialism, it's neoliberalism, it's all of these horrible isms all rolled into one that could lead the world to a very dangerous war.
you think this thing is going to end up? Because I mean, I know you're saying it could lead up to World War III. I mean, it's looking, as some of the OGs would say, it's not looking good for the home team.
No.
I mean, yeah,
Well,
it's looking.
these countries we're always told they're adversaries, and they always put all of us in it. So they say in the first person, China is our adversary. Leave me out of it. Thank you so much. China's not and I was there recently. China's not my adversary. Russia's not my adversary. Hamas is not my adversary. Israel is my adversary, frankly,
Absolutely.
and that of all humanity. But we actually have to hope that these so-called adversaries stand up to the United States and hope that wiser and cooler heads will prevail to prevent a terrible disaster for the whole country. And, we can't talk without mentioning what Israel has done to the people of Gaza. Obvious genocide, obvious war crimes. And I would ask your viewers, just look up definition of war crimes, definition of genocide. Genocide was defined in a treaty after World War II. Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. And it's rather simple definition. It's the intention to harm a group of people, a racial or ethnic or religious or national group. And then it defines what that harm can be. It can be killing people, but it doesn't have to. And we need to know that. Who said we charge genocide? It was Black people. So when people say the mass incarceration system is genocide, they're not exaggerating. It is. That's the definition of it. War crimes, collective punishment is a war crime. So when Israel gives as its excuse continuing to massacre people, we have to get Hamas, that's collective punishment. Punishing one person or one group for a crime committed by an offense committed by another is by definition collective punishment, and it's a war crime. So and what does our Congress do? They've invited Benjamin Netanyahu to speak to Congress for the fourth time. I just found out it'll be the fourth time he's spoken to the United States Congress. But people are outraged. People I know who are not as political as I am, who may not have the understanding of history I have, but they have a sense of decency, and they know that Israel is massacring people, and they don't want to vote for Biden because of it. Biden may, try to placate Netanyahu, but Netanyahu ends up with Trump. Actually, Netanyahu wins the election. He gets a Zionist no matter who wins.
Regardless. Right.
But the
No matter who
Democrats,
wins. Right.
Biden wants to think that this is a PR problem. So they'll claim they're mad at Netanyahu or some BS. They're always claiming something, but defending the government of Israel, Project Ukraine, all of these things and they're bipartisan. They all come together. It was Democrats and Republicans in the congressional leadership who extended this invitation to Netanyahu. And of course they did it in collaboration with the White House. But that's another thing that's causing, I can't think of anything that's so galvanized people to doubt, especially Black people, that they might not want to vote for a Democrat. So we'll see what I am not predicting who's going to win. I think Trump can win. I think Biden can win. But to our credit, we are, and this is a positive thing about Black people. There are certain things, we have our own red lines. We talk about countries having red lines, and seeing a country wipe out entire families is our red line. And we can't go for that. So if there's one thing that's going to make us hesitant to vote for a Democrat, it's seeing what Israel is doing in Gaza. And that is all to our credit.
You know, listening to you, I'm thinking about, the insanity. You mentioned that you'll be 65 soon. And you've seen some things in your day, but this right here, being able to witness it in real time daily is it's like the Twilight Zone. You know what I mean? And I don't think people really quite understand, because I still don't think that, people are seeing it, but there's still a large majority that are turning a deaf ear and a blind eye. Because, how do you see that? Because just from my vantage point.
It is surreal to see, if you're on social media, and who isn't, everybody's walking around with the cell phone. So you can see people burned alive after Israel attacked people in a refugee tent camp. People burned alive, beheaded. They talk about Hamas beheaded children, which is a lie. But the Israel, people are beheaded when, people talk about dropping bombs like it's some, well, that's what happens to the human body when you drop a bomb. People are burned alive. People lose their heads, lose their limbs. And to see that, you go on Twitter and you see these horrible things, people starving to death, people being murdered, other people arguing in favor of the murder. But you also see people all over the world who are saying, no, you're not going to do this. It can't be in our name. You also see South Africa, to its credit, standing up, charging Israel with genocide before the International Court of Justice. But the U.S. cynically saying there's no merit, or when the International Criminal Court finally says something about Israel, although they felt obliged to charge Hamas as well, it is surreal to hear the United States government say, well, this is an outrage. And hear our Congress say, we're going to sanction the ICC because they want to punish, a little slap on the wrist, actually, the genocidaires. So yes, it is surreal to see, but I also think it's important for people to see. And that's why social media is under attack. That's why they want to get rid of TikTok, because people can go on TikTok, they can talk about their new recipe or, what they're doing in the gym, but they can also talk about Israel. And Israelis do it. These Israeli soldiers commit atrocities and post themselves on TikTok. I guess they want to get rid of TikTok and save them from themselves. So it is very strange to be able to see these things in real time. But I also think it's important. I think this is an inflection point in history. I don't know how it's going to turn out, but I think it's been a very long time since a president was in electoral jeopardy because of foreign affairs like Biden is now.
Definitely, we appreciate you coming on. I know we got a few more minutes. I got to use every minute of my time.
Sure.
I want to touch on something. Recently, our brother Daruba issued a challenge to the independent candidates, to Cornel West, to Jill Stein, and to Claudia de la Cruz. We had Jill and Cornel on last week. We'll have Claudia on tomorrow. I wanted your take because, those are three somewhat strong or popular independent candidates. We know that right now, this two-party system, this duopoly is out of control. I think one of the things that some of us are looking at least in Daruba's thinking, he was talking about imagining these three candidates and some of these other independent candidates uh, working towards a future third party. Because, you know, I wanted to know, like, what are your thoughts on that? Because we're talking about on the independent party as a whole right now. Because I think that honestly, you know, if we took, if we were to be serious, to be honest, if we took all the independent candidates that were running and put all of their votes together, it probably wouldn't be close to the current, forerunners, right? So as far as the Democratic and Republican Party, so I wanted to know your thoughts on how this whole independent thing is going, the possibility of a united front, etc.
I think it's something that merits very serious discussion. Um, the system we have relegates independents to quote unquote spoiler status, or in my case, New York State, Andrew Cuomo, that dog who was our governor, he made sure the Green Party can't get
Don't
on the
be mean to
ballot.
dogs. Don't be mean to dogs.
That's true. Dogs are man's best friend. Um, but so they raised the threshold. So in order to get on the ballot, you have to get 45,000 signatures. That's huge. And you've got to get them in half of the congressional districts. So they come up with all these obstacles to keep um, independents off the ballot. But to your point, if uh, if you had a fusion, if you had all of those independent left, and it has to be independent left because Robert F. Kennedy, that right wing maniac, he's a alleged independent candidate. But I think it's something that we should plan for because I think we could do serious damage to the duopoly, which needs to be done. So I don't just say it's not true that Jill Stein cost Hillary Clinton the election. I also say it was no big thing for Hillary Clinton to have won. Um, so, yes, I think you're absolutely right that that is something that we need to think about. It's going to be hard because the parties are entrenched and people are people are people, right? There's the human element that comes into it. But I do think it is. I think it's something worth pursuing.
Definitely, Margaret. Again, we appreciate you coming on. Looking forward to having you back on again. I think I had you on like 18 years ago. It seems that long. But
It's like 2 years. Let's not exaggerate. But it's been a pleasure.
I'm
Thank you
bad with
so much.
math. But yeah,
I
yeah,
would love to come back.
absolutely. Well, we'll see you soon. But definitely appreciate what you're doing over at Black Agenda Report. To the viewers, make sure you go check out Black Agenda Report, which is located at blackagendareport.com. Blackagendareport.com. Make sure you stay tuned. Definitely, we will see you in the whirlwind, Margaret.
Thank you.
And
You
keep
will.
winning. Stay on
Thank,
top.
thank you so
Yes.
much.
You're welcome. Yes. You're checking out RSTV on Black Power Media. That was Margaret Kimberly. Margaret Kimberly from Black Agenda Report. And they're doing great things over at Black Agenda Report. Make sure you check them out, subscribe, and support the work they're doing over there. Uh, we have a number of things happening here at Black Power Media. Make sure we are 1,000 subscribers short of the 50K mark right here. Make sure you all subscribe. The bottom of the screen is scrolling. Support our Patreon because we definitely could use your support because we have a whole lot of new programming and uh, information to be broadcast through Black Power Media. Tomorrow, make sure you check in with us at 4 p.m. EST. We will have Claudia De La Cruz on. I will have Daruba Ben Wahad as my co-host, riding shotgun. And, we're going to win in spite of ourselves. Like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Let folks know to come on in and join this party. And we'll be seeing you soon. Stay on top of the world. This is Black Power Media RSTV. Remember to subscribe, like, all that good stuff. Next time, we out.
Sometimes the riot is a quiet one. Well, the battle is to love yourself and function in society where voices of reason are muted by anxiety, like gaining notoriety is selling your soul. So we tend to go no deeper than the shallow water level, trying to keep us overhead in the face of all the slurs and the stares. Mentally frozen, paralyzed by fear of failure and success. So we lock, stock, barrel, running while it's crumbling. All these towers and that babbling, but the baby's in the bath and the stash under the bed on my head, spinning from the circles and the puppets and the strings that they pull. Then we move. Reactionary warfare never produces winners on the field. Feeble and foolish. What tools and what weapons are we using? We need some new ones. Real revolution. It's real solutions. Well, we've taken on the ways of the ones who conquer with their guns and religion and division. Got my inner me looking like my enemy. Real revolution. Well, my inner me, really a mirror for the galaxy. New time, brand new paradigms, new contracts to sign. They thought that this would all be televised, though it's happening right before our very eyes. It's on the inside, with their guns cocked. When that rock drops, standing on the rooftop, praying that the mountaintop can live inside the valley. People tell me the reward is somewhere off in heaven, like heaven's only in the sky. A chariot's a swinging, like God is something separate from yourself, from your wealth, from your lover, from your neighbor. Oh, your savior is coming in your own name, coming with the face the same. Real revolution. It's real solutions. Well, we've taken on the ways of the ones who conquer with their guns and religion and division. Got my inner me looking like my enemy. Real revolution. Where my enemy is really a mirror for the galaxy. And so we lock, stock, barrel, running while it's crumbling. All these towers and they're babbling, but the baby's in the bath and the stash under the bed. Oh, my head spinning from the circles and the puppets and the strings they pull. Then we move. Reactionary warfare never produces winners on the field. Feeble and foolish. What tools and what weapons are we using? We need some new ones. It's real revolution, producing real solutions. Because we've taken on the ways of the ones who conquer with their guns and religion and division. Real revolution, where my enemy is really a mirror for the galaxy.